if I had $1 for every new mortgage broker who told me they got into this business to get freedom, but ended up chained to their business and their desk, I'd be retired by now. Today on the show, Geri and I talk about how her initial plan to get into the mortgage business because of freedom ended up, because of her success, she ended up with less freedom of time and what she's done to change that. We talk about how we hire before you're ready. We talk about why to systematize your client experience and why a well-placed Google review might be your best marketing investment yet. And she gives very tactical advice on when she does it and how she does it and how a bunch of her business comes from that. You're going to really enjoy this episode. Hey, I'm Scott Beckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast, where every week we bring you content to help you scale your mortgage business. And today's conversation with Geri is definitely is going to be fantastic. I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. OwnWell is a tool that Canadian brokers can use. It allows you to monitor your clients' home equity and buying power on a monthly basis, sends out this really fantastic report, creates conversations around their buying power and their home equity, and has open rates of up to 60%. If you're interested in that, if you want to engage your database in a way that's intriguing, as well as use it to adopt other people's databases, check out ownwell.ca and check out this conversation with Geri. Hey, Geri, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mortgage biz.
Oh, geez. Okay, I have to think back on this one. Got into the market in 2006.
Same as me.
Yeah, so had absolutely no financial background whatsoever. My background came from, I have a university degree in marketing, worked in retail, kind of got trapped there for a little bit. So yeah, 2006. The reason I got into the business, we're a blended family, and working retail at that time, I found that I wasn't seeing my kids. So I would leave send them off to school in the morning and sometimes not see them until the end of the day, next day, depending on what my schedule looked like. So as a family, we kind of sat down and said, hey, we got to do something here. And so narrowed it down to 3 options. It was either real estate, financial planning, or mortgage brokering. And I landed mortgage brokering. And,
why mortgages over real estate and financial planning?
So financial planning, I didn't really have an interest in that at the time. So that was an easy exit on that option. And then with real estate, I kind of felt like I would be working 24/7, and I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And so I did feel like at that time, mortgage brokering gave me a little bit more of that flexibility, because banks are open 9 to 5. Banks aren't open on weekends. So that gives me the flexibility that I needed to raise my kids at the time.
Did you go through a phase where initially, because I talked to a lot of people, they get into the mortgage biz because they want freedom. Then they start to get successful until they put in people and processes. You lose your freedom for a little while. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say since 2020, and maybe even that 2017, but 2020 was where it hit hard. Like I've actually had no life since 2020.
Right. And so, okay, that's a great place, because I often joke people come into this looking for freedom, but if you're successful, you may lose your freedom unless you really are mindful of how you build your business. What have you done to mitigate that since 2020? Or what are the things that you've done in order to allow yourself, or are you still flat out?
I'm still busy, but I'm starting to put tools in place. And I would tell you, I've done a really crummy job of doing that right, getting the right people in place. As I reflect back, I wish that I had listened to the person that told me get an assistant sooner, but I didn't. But right now, so I have my succession plan. Her name's Megan. She's my director of operations. She's mortgage agent level 2. So she's basically my right hand, and I tell people she's my left hand most days as well. So I'm not sure I could run the business on a daily basis without her. So that's been phenomenal. She's been on board for 3 years, but there was a mat leave in between there. So, but she's been back for just under a year. And then I've recently hired 2 new document specialists. So I have a person who started in February. She's actually a law clerk by trade. It was an easy decision to bring her on. It's not been without its challenges. She knows the legal side of it, but there's a lot that she's learning on the mortgage side of it. So she's still learning. So it's going good, but it's kind of slow. And then last month I hired another document specialist. He's actually another Bricks agent. He's a mortgage agent level 1, but had significantly more interest in the admin doc side than the sales side of business. And so he's killing it. So
Amazing. So
it's
why,
been good.
just out of curiosity, why 2 fulfillment specialists?
I just felt like the volumes that I was bringing in, I wanted, initially it was 1. Like I had the person that I hired in February, she was going to be the person, but the learning was too slow, and I needed the extra help. And Jason kind of dropped in my lap, so I jumped on bringing him on board.
Okay, and then what does Megan do for you, the director of operations? I'm curious how your structure is.
Well, right now, I mean, she's really the catch-all. She keeps an eye on the inbox when it's coming in. We're at a point in the business right now where when a new client inquiry comes in, unless they're a direct referral from one of my existing clients or an existing client, she's dealing with them. So she'll send out the initial welcome email, do the discovery call, do the application, we review the application. So she's really taking on new clients, but she's also managing the training for the 2 new document specialists. I'm not solid for training. I don't really do well with people, if you can imagine that in this business. Mm-hmm. So she takes care of the training.
I don't just, there's different ways to be well with people. One of them is building trust and rapport, coming up with a plan. That's one way. The other way is managing other people and coaching them, and that's a different skill set, and often a different personality type that does well at one may not do well at the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Megan is taking care of that for sure. It's and that's pulling that off my plate, and now that's allowing me to start doing a little bit more of lead generation. The database. And
so Megan is essentially another mini you with a focus on management of your inbox as well as your staff.
Yeah, and she's underwriting new deals when they are coming in, and she's also a licensed agent. So at the same time, she's building her business, and there's pros and cons to that. I want clients to be familiar with who she is now, so that when the baton is passed in, could be 10 or 15 years, she's not a complete stranger to them. She's solid. She's really good at what she does, and she's really good at building rapport with clients as well. So I don't worry about handing a file off to her.
Right. That's a good place to be. And just out of curiosity, if you have 10 files or whatever you're closing, how many of them would be that she would take, and how many would you take? Like what % of your files do you think she's just taking from end to end versus the ones you're doing?
Right now, she's maybe 20-25%, and I'll be the bulk of it. But that process, that's relatively new for us.
So you've been in the business the same length time as me. Knowing what you know now, if you had to go back and give yourself advice, what would you do different in some of your decision making? I'm curious about that.
I would have hired somebody to help sooner, like that. Having somebody in place before the business ramps up, I think that just takes all of the pressure off. And you hear it, and you hear it, and you hear it, and you're like, I'm not ready. And then all of a sudden it's like,
but are you you're never really ready, but you still do it. It's like being a parent. Are you really ready to be a parent? You just I wasn't, but you just do it anyway. And you figure it out one day at a time. You don't have to come up with the 18-year plan for this if you have a child. Just like you don't have an 18-year plan for your employee. You just need to know what to do for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I absolutely would have hired sooner to have that help sooner. But with all that being said, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I think that Megan fell into my lap at the right time when I was starting to think long-term strategy. And so I wouldn't change that, but maybe it would have been nice to have her sooner.
10 years, so during COVID, during 2020, when everything went crazy, did you have help then or no?
I would say the first 2 years, no. And then I did actually have a document specialist at that time. She was average. And so it was time to do something different. So yes, I did have some help, but I, self-professed control freak here, right? So it's hard to hand some of that stuff off.
Okay, that makes sense. So that would be your advice would be to you tell yourself hire sooner and
Mhm.
put people in place. Where does your business come from? Talk to me about your marketing or where you've got a fantastic business, but what's working for you to get new business?
So the two primary sources of business for me are existing clients. So I have a database since 2006, and I work that database pretty good. We use Blue Mortgage as our CRM tool, and so we've got some pretty great templates in there for follow up, staying in touch with clients. So that's a huge part of my business. And second huge part of my business is Google. So we have over, I think we're just over 350 Google reviews right now. And initially, when I started getting business from Google, I was like, oh, these files are never going to close. But as it turns
Yeah,
out, they do. So I would tell you, I probably close 75 or 80% of those
the Google review clients.
inquiries. Yeah, those clients that come in
Hmm.
from Google. So I think that's a pretty strong number. And I was very skeptical at first.
Okay, I've got questions about the couple things you just said. One was you've got all these great templates in place for Blue Mortgage.
Mhm.
When you decided to did you put that in place right away? That's my first question. My second question is who put all the templates in place? Was that you or did you get someone to help you?
So I had somebody helping me to do that. I'm not tech savvy. I don't profess to be tech savvy, but yes, we did set it up. So I actually started using Blue. I'm going to tell you, it was like March or April of 2020. So it was like right in the throes of the pandemic.
Right.
And we did set everything up from that time. The old CRM that we used to use, it was Gomax Solutions. We had what we called action plans in
Hmm.
with Gomax, and we basically transferred those over to Blue. And those action plans are stay in touch campaigns with the client. So mortgage closes, and every year you have 3, 4, 5, 6 emails that go out to stay in touch.
So you use GoMax. I know the guys that made that.
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past.
Right. I know. I said it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. And then you moved over to Blue. And people listening, here's what I would tell you. Anybody, if you're a mortgage broker, unless you have a deep tech background, for the love of God, don't set this stuff up yourself.
Mm-mm,
Pay somebody to do
mm-mm.
it. You go out and find another deal and pay someone. It'll get done much faster. It'll be better. We don't do it ourselves we have used a Salesforce for the brokerage, and we have a contractor. Whenever we want something done, we just say, hey, can you make this, do this? And it's done in minutes and we don't have to think about it. And the cost is very nominal.
The nice part now, though, is we do have enough knowledge about it that if we want to go in and tweak something or change something, we can go in and do it relatively easily. And we're always, I don't want to say we're always changing the process, but we're always like tweaking things. And especially
If
now
you weren't,
bringing
that
on
would actually be a
people.
problem. It's
Yeah.
the best people are always trying to improve their process because they find new friction points or new areas where people get confused and they make a little adjustment
Mm-hmm.
or where there can be a pain point. And I think that's good. So that was my first question. My second one about the Google reviews. You said you had 350 plus Google reviews. That's what are you doing to get so many? Because there's lots of brokers that are awesome at their job, but they don't actually get very many Google reviews. So you must be doing something to encourage that or remind or what. Walk me through that.
I'm asking for them through the process.
Mm.
And
When do you ask? How do you know how many times and when?
it's funny. I was chatting with another broker, and he asked me that question today. So we use a document checklist on approval. And when we're reviewing that document checklist, the last piece of that is we would love if you could take a minute to leave a Google review. It lets new clients know what to expect as part of the application and approval process. And that's their first introduction to that. So basically, once they've been approved, and then anytime we send them that document checklist, they see it. Anytime we have to review something on that document checklist, we address it with them. And then as we get further into the approval process, like if we're broker complete, for example, we're sending the clients a note to let them know they're broker complete. And we're saying, hey, just a reminder, if you haven't, please leave a Google review. We
Yeah.
do that on closing day. We do it post closing as well. So,
And when did you
like,
when did you start? When did you start this in earnest? How long ago?
I would tell you during the pandemic. So like
Everything
2020.
changed in
Yeah,
2020.
everything changed. For heaven's sake, I met every client in person before March
Mm,
of 2020. And now if somebody calls and say they want to meet in person, I just refer them off because it's not what I do.
right. So yeah, I don't have to. I want to wear pajamas when I'm on my calls. Like you can't tell right now if I'm wearing pajamas. I'm not wearing
At
pajamas,
least
but
you're wearing pants.
yeah, I'm wearing pants. Some days I don't. It just depends on the day, you know. So yeah, so basically you put it in the document checklist as a reminder so they see it. And even then, I suspect it's still not the percentage is maybe 20% of people, 25. But that's if you
Yeah.
are very but that's it's a with the number of mortgages that you do, it adds up fast
Mhm.
over time and
Interesting.
it compounds, right?
It does. And so Megan has actually gotten good that if we get a call and if she's doing a discovery call for us and it's not going anywhere, she'll actually say, we would really appreciate if you could take the time to leave a Google review. So she's gotten very good at doing that for
So
those
you're
calls
talking
that,
about when
that don't go.
somebody's they're not even a client yet. You let's say they
Mhm.
come to you and say, "Hey, this is my rate. My bank's going to give me this," and you think, "Oh, that's a good deal. Take the money and run." You
Yeah.
still,
And
yeah,
usually there's a conversation, like it's not just a 5-minute conversation and you're
yeah.
asking for a
No, you're
Google
giving them some
review.
strategy and you're
Hmm.
adding value in the conversation.
Hmm.
And I've always often said there's two types of capital. There's real capital and social capital. And sometimes you do a transaction or you coach somebody, consult, and you do genuinely add value or save them money. And you
Hmm.
social capital, a Google review, turns
Yeah.
into business later on. It may not be that deal, but it'll be the next one.
Yeah, and Megan is much better at that than I am. So kudos to her for helping that kind of boost some of those Google
Add
reviews
them.
there.
Okay. And then do you respond to the reviews or what do you do with those?
Yeah, 100% everyone. And they'll just be a simple, like, thanks so much, Scott. It was great working with you on your mortgage renewal or
Yeah. With
mortgage
your 500
refinance.
credit score, I can't believe we actually got you a loan.
No, we don't do that. We make it
Yeah.
very
Oh
generic. And
my God. Your credit was the worst I have ever seen. That'd be
but
hilarious.
sometimes I do write something like, "Hey, we had a lot of hoops to jump through. We really appreciate
Yeah.
that you stuck with us through the process," because they're not all slam dunks. Some of them, most of them, take a lot of work.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What's something you've changed in your process in the last 6 months that you've found to be really helpful? And it can be small. I'm not saying this could be a minor tweak. We're looking for micro improvements when people listen to this and they go, "Oh, that's something I haven't thought of," or you know,
I I can't, like, honestly, I can't even think. The bigger one was hiring hiring doc specialists. That's been a huge part of my process. I guess the second piece to that is keeping my fingers out of all of the deals and letting the doc specialists do their work. That's really, really hard for me because it has been so long of just me with my fingers in the files.
yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to let them do the job.
How do you split the work between the two document specialists? Is it just a one person gets one file? Do you divide it based on file type, or I'm curious what framework you're using for that?
Well, one of the doc specialists is stronger than the other. So that does have a bearing on who gets the files. How quickly do we need it processed? One of them is faster than the other. So, if we're looking at a 4-month closing and I don't need docs tomorrow, then the weaker of the document specialist until she's trained and where she needs to be, um,
Hmm.
has the time to work on that. And then, Jason is the stronger document specialist. If I need, I've got a 3-day COF and I need the docs turned around, I know that he can do it for me. So I would say it's not necessarily 50-50. I think Jason probably gets a little more of the business right now because he's also, like, he wants the business. The other
Hmm.
person is, I don't want to say semi-retired, but she's kind of like in that second phase of life where she's doing this because she doesn't want to sit at home and twiddle her thumbs.
Right. That makes sense. And so what just when do they get involved in the file? So back to when would your document specialists get? Are they doing pre-approvals? Is it just on commitments when the files are approved, or what do you do there?
Yeah, it's on commitment. So as soon as that approval comes in, we're uploading or updating Blue, saying approval back, assigning the document specialist, and then immediately the task generates for them to prep the document package and the document checklist. So right on approval, they're not involved in the pre-commitment stage.
I see. So they're making sure that all the documents that you already, and then do you have a minimum document package that you'll require? Because sometimes you can't get everything up front. You, it's, you know, It's ideal if you can, but what is the minimum that you typically would set?
I'm pretty tough on clients. Like I want almost a full document package. And
Right.
part of the reason I do that, and some brokers will say I want, the least resistance to get the deal in. Actually, I want you to work for it, because if you
Hmm.
work for it, chances are you're going to work through the entire file for me.
Right.
And so, if somebody ballparks me income and I don't have an employment letter, pay stub, and T4s, I'm not starting their application. So I'm pretty much full document package before we'll even do a strategy meeting with them.
Okay. Walk me through your process from lead comes in, and let's say some of the you said 25% of the files are going to your ops manager, but the other 75, do you do it at your discovery call or whatever you call it at the first? How long is that, and what is the goal of that call?
So 30 minutes is pretty much my max on the discovery call. And I always tell clients that I'm doing that to get a high level view on what we're looking to do. What are our timelines? Are you a purchase, a refi, a transfer? What's the income look like? If it's a purchase, where's the source of down payment coming from? Tell me about your credit. And so that really just allows me big picture, and to figure out if I actually want to work with them. I
Right.
don't do a lot of B business. I do no private business. So if somebody calls me and it's a private file, I'm referring that off. I'm not even touching it. B files I will work on. A files, obviously, that's our bread and butter. Um, so yeah, so strategy meeting, and usually by the end of that meeting, I walk them through our process. This is what you can expect if you want to work with us. You're not meeting in person. We're doing everything virtually. We're going to ask you for documents, and then
Yep.
from there, I send them. We use Finmo as our application
Hmm.
software, so I'll send them the Finmo app with the list of supporting documents that I need, and then we have follow ups built into Blue, that if we haven't received, so actually we'll tick a button in Blue that says application's been sent out and when it's sent out. And then I think it's like every 5 days they get a reminder. Hey, you haven't done your application. Are you struggling with it? Is there anything that you need?
Right.
And then once the application comes in, depending on whether it's coming to me or going to Megan, um, we'll underwrite it, review the docs, prep the file. And then from there, I'll send them a quick video review that walks them through the application. This is what I'm thinking for your file. These are a
Yeah.
couple of lenders. This is what I think that we would do. Our next step is to get a strategy meeting scheduled in. And so if they're an existing client, that strategy meeting is usually just a phone call. And sometimes I'll even say to them, look, we've been working together long enough. If you like how the numbers look, give me a thumbs up. I'll get it ready to submit. If you have questions, give me a thumbs down, and we'll do that strategy meeting and fine tune the numbers.
What is a typical length of a strategy call?
I set aside in my Calendly, we're 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Sometimes I can get them done in 30. First time home buyers who I don't deal with a lot anymore are typically an hour, because there's a lot more
A
information that I need
lot
to
of
go.
information they need. So then you'll do a strategy session, and then where else are you involved in the process?
I'm submitting it out for approval. So, when we've done that strategy meeting, refi or transfer, we're usually submitting it out within a day or so. And then as soon as that approval comes back, then the doc specialists are taking it over. If it's a purchase that we need time, um, we set them up on we call it a prospecting action plan. And so we have videos and emails that go out to them. I think it's like once a week, covering things like, don't go buy a car. This is
Yeah.
the difference between a deposit and down payment. So we have some videos built into that process. So I will stay involved as touch points through that. I'll call it pre-approval process.
Right. Okay. Strategy call. And then once it's approved, what happens? Do you reach out then by video? Do you make another phone call once everything's done? What happens? What's the next step there?
So doc specialist gets assigned. Doc specialist creates the signing package, the document checklist, and then Blue will task me, Geri, review. I review that, and that's when I send the clients an email that says, hey, congratulations, you've been approved. Here are the details of your approval. Here's your document checklist. And I'll throw in like a 3-minute video that walks them through the document checklist so that they know this is what we're looking for. And that's when I ask for that first Google review.
Yeah.
Um, so I would do that, and then just kind of walking through my step, because it's so, like, I just do it. I don't even think about it. But within probably 3 days of the approval coming back, I'll do a video review. it's usually anywhere between like 10 and 14 minutes, depending on the approval. So I usually tell them, expect this to come. Grab yourself a beer, grab yourself a glass of wine, sit down, watch the video so that you know what all these terms and conditions are of the mortgage. So we send that out, they watch it. Again, they give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If they have questions, we hop on a call, answer those questions. And if not, we get the docs sent out for electronic signing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty slick. What's one tool you talked about? Blue, Finmo. What's a tool outside of those that you can't live without, or that you find really helpful for your business?
Loom and Calendly.
Yeah.
Loom has been a game changer. And so this whole video process, I started that in 2020 with the pandemic. And that has been a game changer in my business. And the positive feedback that I get from clients on that, you know, they can watch a video multiple times and I don't have
you can
to
pause
sit.
it.
Yeah, they can go back and it's, you know, when we met clients in person, a half an hour, well, a 15-minute Loom would be almost an hour and a half meeting. And so, you know, the time that we're saving there is a game changer.
And you're not creating, in my mind, you're not creating a negative, a worse experience with it. I think videos, I prefer, it's like asynchronistic communication. I've been using a lot more video and I find it helpful.
Yeah. The feedback's good. So I wouldn't change that. And then Calendly just allows me to, I'll say, have control of my schedule a little bit more. So, you know, I like to golf on Tuesday nights in a ladies league. So my appointments stop at 2:00 on Tuesday.
So they can't book you.
Yeah. They can't book me. And that's, I mean, it's also a game changer. So I have my discovery call, I have a strategy meeting, and I have a quick call. And I can limit the number of discovery calls I have each day. I can limit the number of strategy meetings I have each day. I can limit the number of quick calls that I have, but I can't say to Calendly, I want a maximum of 4 appointments per day out of those 3 different bookings. So that becomes a little bit of a struggle because 3 is my max quick calls, but I have 2 discovery calls and 2 strategy meetings, and my day can get relatively full even if I only have a 4-hour time slot in there.
Right. That makes sense. Have you been using AI at all in your business?
I'm trying so hard to use AI.
No, this is not a judgment thing. I'm genuinely curious because I find that sometimes people are using it in ways that I hadn't thought of, and then I just want to copy it, basically.
So I have started, and not really AI, but all of my discovery calls that I do, because I have the iPhone, I now record those calls. And so then I take that and I drop it into AI and I let the AI summarize that. And so that's really good if Megan's taking over the file, because now she's got that discovery call
and a
so summary
helpful.
of it.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Good. And then my strategy meetings, I'm also recording those. We use Google G Suite. So we record those with Gemini, and that's pretty handy as well. Like it'll summarize if there's like any action steps that you need to take. So, I mean, I guess I'm starting to use it, but I'm learning. It's very overwhelming because there's so many to choose from.
Uses, though. They're good entry level uses of AI, and that'll make you more productive. This was a great conversation, by the way. We covered a lot of ground. You said, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. You shared lots of great ideas that for you are second nature, but other people, it's a reminder, because often we hear things and we forget to implement them, or it's hey, yeah, I should copy that and do it. And so thank you for coming to chat with me. But